Hey, welcome to a quick overview of the latest version of RC Crew Chief. When you open the program, this is the screen you'll see. This gives you a depiction of the four different components, in this case, that go together to make up a car. So if you want to see the makeup of the car or change the makeup of the car, click on the Car Manager. You can go in and select any one of the cars that you already have assembled from the list here and make changes to the properties of that. Or you can just make changes to the properties of this car. So you can see we have a component section, so you just select the various components required from the list. So you pick a chassis that you want to use with the car, a motor, the battery, and the speed control. So you select those four components. The other information you want to enter at the car level is the total vehicle mass, the unsprung mass, center of gravity. There's a center of gravity calculator here. So if you have four-wheel scales, you can place your car on the scales, weigh your corner weights, then raise the excuse me, the rear of the car up and determine what the CG height is. So the other thing that we have here is the aero properties. There's a little aero constants calculator here where you can enter in your the body dimensions and what percentage is filled to calculate that and copy those over to the car. I just copied those over to the car here because this model didn't have those assigned yet. So I'll save this just so that it's saved. You also have a section here where you can enter notes specific to the car, whatever sort of mod you may have done to it, or anything you desire you can add into the notes section. Okay, so let's go back to the main screen here. So each one of these components also has its own manager. There's the chassis manager. This is where you enter all the required values for the model. You can build your own model. You do not have to use one of the models that are provided for you. There are lots of models that are available on the website. You just have to go to the download section on the website and download the model and then import it into the program using the car manager. So we have chassis, we have manager for electric motors. You can do some comparisons between different motors if you want to look at that. If you have a flywheel dyno or access to flywheel dyno data, you can import the raw data and create a motor model from that. Kind of a cool feature, but I'm not going to get into the details of it here. You can also use Nitro Motors if you can get your hands on dyno curves. Essentially what you do is you just enter a table of values for the motor RPM and the torque, and from there you can calculate the acceleration performance of your car. Use different gearing ratios. You can set the shift RPM, the time it takes to shift. You can also do some motor comparisons here. So if we want to look at two different motors and see where we're seeing differences in the performance, you can easily visualize that. Okay, so that's the motor manager. Battery is just fairly straightforward. It's just the voltage per cell, the number of cells, and the internal resistance. And the ESC, since the only thing we're doing here is wide open throttle, we don't really care about the frequency driving or pulse width or any of that sort of stuff. Right now we can't do anything to do with boost or turbo or any of that nature. It's just purely an on resistance and a wiring allowance, so essentially that's all you can do at this stage, but it's good enough to do straight line acceleration simulations. Okay, so across the top here we have a number of tabs, so we'll just click through each one. The setup tab, this is where you create the setup for your vehicle. So you have all your suspension optional locations that you have here. If you want to change to a different one, you just click. and it will change to a different position. As it does that, it will calculate the roll center position. It will also update the suspension properties over here if what you've changed affects one of them. So you can see here, by changing this position from the bottom right corner to the top left, we've changed the camber gain. We've also changed our roll center positions by doing that. So we're going from -4 to -7 millimeters. The roll center position is measured relative to ground. So negative numbers indicate it's below ground, positive it's above ground. The other thing that we have here is our roll stiffness properties, front roll couple, and chassis roll sensitivity. If you want to understand more about what these values are, I suggest you watch the video that was just uploaded on setup basics. Will help define what those are. I haven't got time to go through that in this quick little video. There's a lot to cover, and I just want to sort of quickly take you through everything. So the other thing we can do in setup is we can easily change our shock positions, just clicking on a different position. We can change our shock position. If you watch over here, you'll see that all the properties are updating as I do that. If you want to change to a different spring, just grab one from the list. You want to change to a different anti-roll bar, turn it off, or sorry, disable your anti-roll bar, just uncheck the box. You want to select a different one, just select it from the drop-down list. Okay, last tab on the setup information is to do with gearing and just general notes. So we can enter our pinion and spur and get a calculation over here of the gear ratio and rollout. The other thing is you can enter a list of setup notes as to whether you're running a spool or a gear dip, what weight of oil, what your caster blocks you're running, anything you desire, rebound percentages for your shocks, all that sort of stuff. Tire notes, anything special about your tires, and the track in general. So that's the setup tab. Next we move into the handling tab. I don't care about that. The other thing I should say before I move on is you can have a number of different setups. This one here, there's a kit setup, and this one's Kevin Hebert. He's one of the associated factory drivers. So here's his setup from the 2012 U.S. Indoor Championships. When you download a model off the website, it comes with at least one setup, and I always try to include a pro setup as well. That gives you something that you can look at and compare the kind of suspension setup that they run. Not that it's going to make you as fast as them, but it should help get your head around all the properties you need to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to move over to, I'm just going to leave it on this one here. I'm going to move over to the handling tab. So in the handling tab here we have, this is looking at the weight transfer relationship. So it takes into consideration the roll stiffness of the chassis, the roll center positions, the sprung mass center of gravity, height and location, and the lateral acceleration. And in this case we have three different situations we look at. So corner entry, so we're braking and turning, the mid corner where we are just turning only, we're not accelerating or braking, and then the corner exit where we're coming out of the corner and we're accelerating and turning as well. So you can see here the circles represent how much load is on that tire. So in this case we're going through a right hand turn, and because we're braking, we've got a lot of load on the left front, not so much load on the right rear. So I'm not going to go through a lot of information on this, but just so you know it's there. You can also click on any of these and you can change your setup and apply that, and all this will update to show you what the effect of that change is in relationship to the weight transfer. Dynamics. This one does a simulation of the chassis just in pure roll, so just pure lateral acceleration, no acceleration or braking, straight line. we just animate this, you will see we have pointers that give you an indication of your camber and your camber change. These two bars here give you the range that the camber is changed. We have this push loose bar graph here, so it shows you essentially what the handling tendency is in relationship to the weight transfer. And then we have a whole bunch of graphs we can look at here. Roll angle, spring forces, sprung CG, camber. This is probably the most important one, and this is the camber versus lateral G, because it allows you to see where your tire camber is as a function of the lateral acceleration. So that is the dynamics tab. Then we have the acceleration tab. So this just does a straight line acceleration based on the motor and gearing. So we have, this is your motor and gearing that you've entered on your setup tab. And then we have a second card here that we can compare. So let's see what happens if we go up 4 teeth, calculate button, and you can see here we have the acceleration change, the speed, distance traveled, and motor RPM. We can also configure these graphs in a number of different ways to display the information that you're looking to get out of this. And last but not least, we have calculators. We have the CG calculator, which you already saw. We have a spring rate calculator to calculate the spring rate for coil springs, anti-roll bars. There's a bunch of different anti-roll bar calculators. Gear ratio calculator, and a wire resistance calculator. So that's it. That's a very quick run through RC Crew Chief. Be sure to subscribe to the RC Crew Chief channel on YouTube, and you'll receive notices of new tutorials and videos that are uploaded onto YouTube. Have a great day.